And I'll turn that over to Mr. Grimes.
All right, well, good morning. We've got a unique schedule, and you've got that in front of you. And so I'm going to stall for a minute since our CFO is not in the room. Nope, she's not here. Claire made it. Okay, good. So thank you, department heads and key staff, for being here. This is a good day for us here today, as well as the next budget hearing number 2. And so we're going to run through a variety of presentations that you all are very accustomed to and used to, but we feel like this will hopefully consolidate it into an easier flow as you use not only the binders, but I think we also have prepared a PDF that we are going to email to you or email to you. Did we email it? We're going to send that to you as soon as this meeting ends, so you'll have this in PDF too if you want to use your computer. So I want to just start with a recap. Said some of this last night, but for the video and what we're doing, we're videoing these so we have, for the citizens can see, as well as any council members that cannot attend. I know Dr. Middlebrooks said he would be watching as he could today from work, and possibly the others. So at that convenience, we want to make sure everything's on the information so they can hear it. But basically, the goal of this has been, we requested through the department heads, because we are new to this city and these operations, we wanted to make sure that we ask for all needs. And I stress all needs that are in each department as we serve the city, because this will help us to understand not only what's needed now, presently, but in the next year to 2 years. And the goal is hopefully, especially when we get to the capital and one-time purchases, that we'll be in a position to consolidate that to a true 3 to 5 year capital plan, which is back on track. I know y'all have done that in the past, and I think hopefully we can get that to where we catch up with what's in the pipeline now, complete those projects, and how to fund what's in the future. A lot of sidewalk projects, a lot of engineering that you'll see in that section. And when it gets there, they've prioritized those based on needs of drainage, culverts, et cetera. So you'll see a lot of that as we can kind of develop it over the next several years. The importance of having all the information submitted also helps us with the staffing, so we can talk about a growth strategy of how we grow as a city. Clearly, we're very strong with public safety. I think that there's still need, as both chiefs have recommended in this. And I think with personnel, that comes to match up with some of the equipment needs that you've also seen and will continue to see in the list. So part of this, and Jennifer, if you'll come over, I'm gonna let you kind of give the big picture update, that last paragraph. Part of this for us too is just to kind of take this information in today, maximize your time for this 3-hour period, and then process how we get feedback back from you. So trying to not necessarily tell you that we're not trying to have a debate and interaction today, but I think to flow through it, since the department heads are here and we have that, they'll be able to see citywide what we're also presenting. And I think from that standpoint, keeping the flow going. That sounds like I'm trying to muzzle you. I'm not. I'm trying to say, let's get through the time, and then once through Wednesday night, and we'll have better defined information where we'll set personal meetings if you like that, small group meetings, however you want to process it for the budget team to kind of take your concerns or priorities, and we'll work through that to mesh into the mayor's proposed budget. So with that, for now, one thing that has changed this morning, the mayor had requested to go on Wednesday, so that will actually shift us from our very tight schedule, and that'll shift us a little bit as we adjust on our times. A reminder for the department heads, the timer is not to be mean to you, it is just to keep us on track. So if you'll just be mindful when you come up and speak, if you give us some time back, that is awesome. And then we'll stay on track as we work through it, just because we have so many on the schedules for today and for the next hearing on Wednesday. All right, Ms. Jennifer.
Okay, so I know y'all have not been in possession of some updates for the current year. We have our 2023 audit complete, and so that gives us a good starting point. What I can tell you just about financial position, because as we think about budget, that's probably top of mind. What do we have that we can reasonably spend? I will say that we're in a very strong financial position. Our cash position is very good. We have a lot of money invested that's currently earning interest for us. And we are going to be working to be able to present some actual revenues for 2024 for you and projections so that you can see where we plan to end the year for our revenues. And then based on, we have a lot of catch up to do with recording some of our transactions in the current year, but we feel like we can get to take a very good academic approach at looking at our estimated, where we're going to land with our estimated expenditures so we can give you a conservative idea of what the excess will be from this year, because I believe this body has usually looked at that excess as a means of funding additional capital projects and other things that you'd like to do. So we will be working hard to try to prepare that information for you and present it publicly so that you can have it and begin to think about how you want to spend that excess. There, of course, would also be the option of determining to use part of the unassigned fund balance to do things too, and that would just be one of the options that the body would have to decide on. But I wanted to at least give you that information to know that will be forthcoming, information on the projected plan of where we think we're going to land in terms of our excess. I think that's it. We are excited about building our, I think that's, yeah, sorry, that's my phone over there. We are trying to build our teams. You're going to notice some personnel requests in the budget. I don't want to steal my own thunder for when I present my budget request, but you guys already know that I've asked for some additional positions. But I think as we build the team for moving forward, we have a lot of hope of what we can accomplish this coming year. So thank you for listening to all these requests. So Ken, am I to introduce the first person, the first department, Mindy? Okay. Come on up, Mindy. Sorry. You're sitting there for some reason.
That's all right. Good morning. So I'm just going to talk about your binders real quick and just how to look through them. We have a summary sheet, first and foremost. First, you have a tab for every speaker that'll come before you today. They are in order, so hopefully that is very convenient for you. So all you really have to do is kind of follow along and flip through each tab as people are talking. So if you'll turn to the front section, and I don't have it on the projector just because it's a little busy on the screen, but as you look through it, if you guys will look through it with me, if you look at, in the very front section, you should find a sample, which is basically a blank form with some fake numbers in there. I did that so that you could really see just the template itself without a lot of extraneous information, because the form can grow if someone has a lot of requests. So it can be a little busy when you first start looking at it, but we wanted to bring some consistency, and then we really wanted to be able to synthesize and help you guys take in the totality of the requests. And it's quite a job to look through all of these and figure out what people are asking for. So hopefully this is helpful. If you find it useful, then we're going to continue on, and we'd love to get feedback and make sure that we improve on this process each year. So the first section is a summary, and this is just upfront for your benefit, is a summary of new requests only, and it does exclude any fiscal year 24 operating. The second section begins to break down the details, so you'll see your operating budget comes first. The new requests, so the additions and operating are listed there. And then at the very bottom, that last figure is usually your fiscal year 24 original budget. That is what we have asked department heads to move money around and balance into, and then anything above that number would come before you as a new request. So that number is there for reference. The Section 3 is the personnel section, and you'll see those listed out there between upgrades and deletions and new positions. And then you have new vehicle requests. Those usually come from fleet or directly from the department. Same thing with technology. You'll see those listed out there or in Moose's budget. Building services, you'll see that again when we talk about building services, but we also wanted to list them with the departmental summary. And then the last section is capital and one-time items. And for the building facilities and the capital one-time items, we wanted to divide those up into things that had previous funding from last year, new projects that would repair or enhance something we already have, and then something that would actually bring a new service. So, thank you very much.
Let me say that I know we've got some people that haven't seen it yet, but from somebody that works with an ERP, my day job, this is wonderful. This is what I was hoping we would get out of an ERP software to pull all this together, and having it in one binder is amazing. Because like I was telling you before the meeting, everybody would bring their own forms, and that would be, if you didn't make detailed notes on the forms, you get lost. So having this plus the spreadsheet, cover sheet is awesome. You did a great job with this.
Thank you. Hope you find it useful.
One quick question, Mindy. So I see the section where we can see the original budget from fiscal year '24.
Yes.
Is there anywhere down in the detailed requests for like personnel and new vehicles and new technology where we see the budget for that line item for '24 for comparison?
I did not break down the payroll budgets or those particular budgets. I did give you a listing of operating budgets so that you could see how money was moved around in some subsequent pages.
Okay.
Just know that they might not tie out to your summary sheets because that's a work in progress. And that's coming directly from, I think I pulled the data Saturday. So tried the best to go through what departments gave us along with what Claire's recorded in the meetings that we've been in, and tried to just make sure I'm collecting everything.
Okay.
And then begin to sift through it. So we're happy to answer any questions and provide any additional information that you can think of too.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to shift to city clerk, and on your list, she has 0 minutes, but we thought she was in jury duty, so we were going to cover that in Mindy's overview. But since she gave you the summary, we didn't use the city clerk budget as the example, so I'll turn it over to Wendy.
I have very minimal increase this budget year. It's around $5,000, as you'll see in there. I tried to adjust what I could to cover it. We have municipal elections next year, so increased part of that is to make sure that we get all the training for the municipal elections. And then also, the legislature passed a bill that has municipal officials through the league, starting after the election, trainings implemented. So this will cover it if you all would like to actually go to the trainings before the election.
Any questions on Wendy's very small increase? Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll shift to economic development. So Greg, you and Jackson.
Good morning. So this year, I'll be presenting 3 different budgets: the economic development budget, the healthcare authority budget, and the Riverwalk budget. So for the economic development budget, it's important to note that we have a lot of contributions that go through our budget. About 43% of our budget goes to other organizations to fund the Hoover Chamber, the Birmingham Business Alliance, and the Shelby County Chamber. So just wanted to point that out. We've tried to be very responsible in our budgeting this year and have reallocated $68,000 from travel and registration to better and higher uses. But in terms of proposed increases, we're requesting an increase of $21,600 to get to $171,600,000 for a market study for Central Hoover, which would include the Galleria. We're seeking also private dollars to help cover those costs. We're seeking $200,000 in legal fees to cover special projects, which might come before us this year, including redevelopment of Central Hoover. So that's a new request that we have this year in the budget. We're requesting $150,000 of an additional $150,000 to fund our $300,000 commitment to the Hoover Chamber through the Elevate Hoover campaign. We're requesting $20,000 to fund the Hoover Hire Incentive Program, which was passed by council a few months ago. That would provide seed money for that. And we're requesting $45,000 for a departmental vehicle, as my team is regularly driving their personal vehicles to handle city business. And so overall, we're requesting, I jumped ahead, I'm sorry. Let me move to the healthcare authority right now. We're requesting an additional $675,000 to fund Healthcare Authority legal expenses and a management consultant tied to obtaining the CON and issuing the RFP for the operator. And then that's the only request we have within that, the only increase. And then Riverwalk is an entirely new category this year. So we're requesting $3 million to cover the prepaid developer incentive for Riverwalk Health and Wellness District. We're requesting $335,000 to cover our estimated operating expenses for the leased space at Riverwalk, and $472,000 for lease expenses for the city's lease space within the Riverwalk building.
I have a question about the Healthcare Authority.
Yes.
And you may not be able to answer it. It may be a question for legal, but I was seeing the Healthcare Authority as a council-created board like the Arts Council or the, Library Board. And with such, if that is, and again, it may be a legal question, if that is the scope of that, the scope of work for that board, then it would be something where they would recommend an expenditure or recommend a project to the council, and the council would fund it at that time. Maybe the thing to do there is to have a Healthcare Authority line item within your budget, which I think you have.
Yes.
Instead of it being a separate department, and then have them recommend, the management service or those kind of things to council, so council appoints it as the oversight of a council-created board. But again, that's a legal question. I think it's just something we might want to talk about with Philip before we put it in there as a separate department per se. Just making sure we're not conflicting with our ordinance.
Sure. And I guess the way I'm looking at it is almost a separate line item under the economic development
Okay,
budget
so
as opposed to a department.
Instead of a department. I got you. Okay, I understand.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no, good question.
Any other questions?
I had a couple questions. So Greg, on Elevate Hoover, I know last year when Tony Bass left, I know that Curt Posey asked a question, were they still going to be raising money to match what we matched? Is there an update on what they have raised so far for last year?
They are raising money. I don't have that personal update. I know that's something they plan to come and give to council.
I can answer that. Steve, I asked for that. They met with us, gave a brief presentation this week, and I asked them for their private donations to Elevate Hoover to match up. So we should be getting that from them any day.
Oh, thanks. Okay. And on the lease space of Riverwalk, I know we're paying for that. What's the time frame? What's the groups that y'all are hoping to put in there in the near future?
That would be outside of what I'm responsible for doing. That's certainly something I know that Mr. Aldaka and others on our team are looking at in terms of getting that space utilized.
Well, I'll answer that. So what we're paying this year in fiscal year '24 is the operating expenses for being part of the 6 floors, and we have the 4th floor. As Mr. Posey had negotiated payments 2 through 10 in a 10-year lease, so we had the first year waived. For the budget, we have the rent, the operating cost, as well as our prepaid rent, which is the incentive, the $3 million. So that's all in the budget that you see. And to answer that first question, we're not trying to create a department of that. We're just trying to create a line item so the public can see how much is spent for that particular project. So that'll actually help accounting-wise at least show within economic development, since it is an economic development project. The answer is we're working with that agency that's currently a tenant in our public safety building, and that would be the #1 priority. And the timeline of that triggers after September 18th if we receive the CON.
Okay. But back to Elevate Hoover, if we can get those numbers, that'd be helpful.
I think it's important to see where the leverage is on private dollars to match up with the $300,000 a year investment. So clearly they understand that, and that was the first thing I asked them to provide us with some other information along with that program for accountability.
And then maybe also on the legal services, I know we just authorized $500,000 just a few council meetings ago. And now that we got the okay from the challenge.
The administrative law judge's opinion, yes.
Okay, so the extra $650,000, is it really going to cost that much? I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I mean, that's a lot just to
Well, Ms. Driver's a liaison like myself and that board sitting in those meetings. And I think so the first step is we're still plugging through September 18th. And then clearly we're working toward the next step for legal is the RFP. The RFP process, the selection of operators for not only the ambulatory surgical center and the diagnostic labs. So which could be more than one or could be the same. But there's a lot of legal paperwork to make sure that that all works out with the healthcare authority and the owner of the building. So with that, I imagine those leases are part of that estimate as we move forward into this fiscal year 25. So it's, the carrying cost for this to the citizens due to the delay of the intervention has been costly, and that's unfortunate. And it's also cost us in time, which has delayed the rent. And so unfortunately, that's the reality of where we are with what just ended with the administrative law judge's opinion.
Okay.
If I might just add a little piece to that on the legal fees piece, right now we are still opposed. And so you can, reasonably assume that there, even if we're successful on September 18th with a certificate of need board, that there would be a series of appeals that would come after that, that would cost a lot of money in legal fees to defend. So, worst case scenario, you have to go all the way through that process. Best case scenario, the opposition decides not to proceed with that. So, a lot of it depends on what happens going forward, how much that winds up costing. And then I did have a couple of questions too. So sort of similar to Councilor McClinton's question about the operating expenses and lease expenses being in the economic development budget. So I understand including the incentive payment as part of the economic development budget. It does seem a little unusual to me to have the operating expenses for the lease space and the lease expenses as part of the economic development budget, when really that is something we're looking at as an operating cost for the city to offset other space and be able to gather revenue from whoever we might put in that space if we do rent it to a third party. So I'm curious about why we're choosing to put it in the economic development budget.
I think that's a very good point, that we can adjust it to wherever appropriate, since I don't believe we rent a lot of property in the city in this case. And so there would be expenses and potential revenues coming in. So that can be adjusted. I think for now, we're just trying to keep the simplicity of the line item so everyone can say, how much does Riverwalk cost? And you've got it all kind of lumped together but we can adjust that as needed, I'm sure. Is that?
All right, that's all the questions on this section for me right now.
Anyone else before we move to fire? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good morning. Certainly appreciate this opportunity to be able to present the budget proposal for the fire department for 25. I certainly appreciate Mindy and the work you did to put this together. We had a binder that we went over with Ms. Cornett and Mr. Grimes a month or so ago, and she was able to kind of cook that thing down so we can follow this together. And so I'll present this as quickly as possible, and at any time you have a question, if you want to ask a question, I would entertain those. If you look at the top right on the first page, we have $3,082,688.74 increase above last year's budget. 1.4 million of that is apparatus and equipment, and we'll cover that in just a few minutes. But I want to start with the operating expenses. Operating expenses, we're asking for $162,963 more than last year. And three of those categories are super important to explain. $81,441 of that increase deals specifically with three things that we can't control at all. One is Jefferson County's pro rata. The pro rata is a fee that we pay per citizen that lives in the city of Hoover that resides in Jefferson County. That was voted on by the mayors last spring. It went from $1.34 per person to $1.84 per person. And we have 65,000 plus or minus individuals who live in Jefferson County who live in the city of Hoover. So we're asking for $33,641 for that additional increase. Also for hydrant rental, as you all know, we have two types of hydrants within our city or categories. One is private hydrants and one is public hydrants. We rent our public hydrants from Birmingham Water Works, and typically we spend about $350,000 annually on hydrant rental to Birmingham Water Works. And they had a rate increase. That rate increase is calculated to be $17,800 additionally from last year's budget. And I don't know if that's exactly right because, as you know, when we have planned unit developments and contractors build these facilities, they put hydrants in and they pay for the first 3 years rent on those hydrants. And after 3 years, they roll off and the city assumes those if they are public hydrants. Well, with that being said, we don't know exactly how many of those hydrants will roll off, but we do know that the $17,800 is their request in additional funding. When we talk about public and private fire hydrants, private hydrants are hydrants that sit behind the vault or a meter on the customer's side. For instance, a shopping mall may have 15 hydrants in the shopping mall, and that shopping mall's owner is responsible for the maintenance and care of those. Even though we flush them and paint them and do all those things, if something happens, they have to have a private contractor to repair those hydrants. Same thing with the city of Hoover. We have multiple private hydrants that the city is responsible for in our city. And in the past, a few years ago, we used to have about $20,000 to $30,000 in an account to repair those hydrants that are on city property. That money was removed, and so we don't have money available to repair those. Just last year, we had $29,000 worth of hydrant repairs that were required on city property, and that money had to come from the fire department's budget because there was no money to do that. So we're asking for $30,000 for that. Uniforms, our uniforms have gone up astronomically. You know, we changed uniforms a few years ago. We're using a fire retardant material uniform, which is required. We're very pleased with those uniforms. They hold up better, they look nicer, but just the pants themselves have gone up $40 per pair of pants. So we're asking for an additional $20,000 in increase for uniforms as well. Managed services and accreditation manager training. This deals with our accreditation process, and this year, December 3rd through the 6th, we'll go back through our next 5-year strategic plan, and that is part of the contract services for that particular application. And also, we have training for a new accreditation manager that will have to, that person will have to do. And I'd like to note that on our accreditation, most departments our size have an accreditation manager, and that's all they do. We don't have that. And so we spread that workload out among different people. And from time to time, we change accreditation managers, and they have to have certain training. And so we're asking for additional funding for that as well. The third category from the bottom, fire equipment maintenance, we have identified $10,000 of increases in our repair, maintenance, and testing of our fire equipment. So we test our pumps every year, we test our ground ladders every year, our aerial ladders, SCBAs, so on and so forth, and we've identified that that will go up by $10,000 this year on all of those things. Professional licensure, that deals with the increase of this year when our paramedic license will be up for renewal for a large majority of our department, and that's a $7,500 increase. We've also asked for $6,000 additional in training. That's due to the fact that a lot of the firefighters that we're hiring now are non-certified, which we're happy with. So we have to send those individuals to the fire college, and it typically takes $3,000 per individual to train them for 10 weeks. And we can't take that money out of our normal registration account for other people who attend classes. On the second page, the top two ask for $5,422 additional money in EMS supplies. That deals specifically with transporting. And then also with the Birmingham Regional Emergency Medical Services System, we ask for an additional $5,000 for their fees as well. So that concludes the operational side of it. The next category down on the second page deals with personnel requests. And I'd like to skip that for a second and come back to that last. The second category down deals with vehicle requests. So this year, we're asking for an engine and a transport unit. And I want to say to the council and to the mayor's office, over the past 3 years or so, we have really been able to catch up on some things, and we've been able to purchase that, and that's due to the support from the mayor's office and the council for appropriating that funding for that equipment. National standards, national best practices say to keep frontline engine companies in service for 10 years and then rotate those to reserve status. For a rescue truck, they recommend 5 years, and for a ladder truck, they recommend 15 years. And so we got off that schedule for many years, and we're kind of back on that schedule. We have 9 pumpers that are in engines that are in service every day. And so if we purchased an engine every year, we would be able to keep that rotation appropriate, and it would be able to spread it out where we don't have to buy a bunch of apparatus at the same time. Our rescue units, happy to say that this past year, Jefferson County donated a new rescue truck to us, and we're very grateful. That truck's in service at Rescue 5. And then this year, we convinced Shelby County to do the same. And so they've ordered that truck for us as well, and it'll be here in about 18 months. And so we're asking for an additional rescue truck. Now, I know if you look at the pricing, an engine is $1.2 million, and a rescue truck is $400,000. In 2016, we changed our specifications on our apparatus, on our pumpers specifically, and we scaled those things down. We wanted a low hose bed, we wanted a short truck, and we wanted something that worked. Nothing fancy or frilly. We purchased 2 of those trucks for the high 400s. And then we saw the trucks go up to 640, and then they kept creeping up. And the last engine we bought that's on order now was 677, and now we've been quoted at 1.2 million. Our staff has really worked hard to put this together for you. I know that some people say the budget just kind of stays flat, but we really try to do our homework and research to make sure that you know what we're dealing with. We've looked at other manufacturers. We've looked at Pierce, which is the leading manufacturer in the United States. Their pricing is exactly where this pricing is, with a 48-month delivery time. There are other apparatus that are out there that are not custom to how we build our apparatus, that are a little bit cheaper, but not much. And we're still having 24 to 36 to 48-month delivery times. Our rescue trucks that we're using, nothing fancy. I know that people have said in the past that we could probably get by with a van as a transport unit. I'm totally against that. I don't think that's safe. Our firefighters and paramedics are cross-trained, so in vans, they don't have space to carry air packs and turnout gear and the tools and equipment they need to fight fires. And so the trucks that we buy are tandem axle trucks. The boxes can be taken off and re-chassied. And that is the safest vehicle for the patients. And it's also safe for our firefighters as well. Those trucks were anywhere from $230,000 to $260,000, and now they've gone to $400,000. There are other trucks that are out there that are $550,000 that people around us are buying. So I want you to understand that we're trying to buy the trucks that we need, not anything super fancy. I know there has been talk from the council, and I don't want to overstep my bounds, Mr. Grimes or Ms. Cornett, but I know there has been talk about using or utilizing the transport money to help pay for these apparatus. And I think that's a fantastic idea. That way that money, that 1.4, 1.6 million would not have to come out of operating. I think that's a great idea.
Chief, would you like me to pop in
Yes.
and explain. So, so we've been tracking about between 2 and 2.2 million in transport fees that the fire department is taking in, and then there are some taxes that have to be paid out of that, and those are currently residing just in the operational budget, the general fund budget for fire. And there's a lot of activity, a lot of transporting happening. The projected excess, I think, for this year, just from transport activities is around $2 million. Those activities are creating a lot of wear and tear on the equipment. And so we believe that it makes a lot of sense to kind of set those funds aside in a particular, what we call organization, so that the fire department can have those funds available to replace the rescue units and components. It seems like a smart idea to us to match those revenues with the using up of those fire implements. And I think Chief had said that if that could be done, then most of the capital requests for replacement of capital items for fire could be handled through that. Is that?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I think that if we were able to, just for instance, if we were able to collect and after taxes, fees pay or put back $2 million, and we spent 1.4, 1.5, we keep putting that money back each year. And then when a ladder truck is due to be replaced, you have the majority of that money. I don't know what a ladder truck's gonna cost in 10 years, but you would have the majority of that money available. We could use that money for other things like for station maintenance or whatever you guys felt like would be appropriate for us to do. And it would certainly help us with operational money as well. So that's where we are on vehicles. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the third category, technology, $92,500. That deals with our new First Due software. It deals with different tablets and stuff that we use for EMS reporting. And so that's just a common expense. And I think Moose Cope will go over that thoroughly. Buildings, facilities request. This is a biggie for us. A few years ago, Mr. Charles Yates took over building facilities. So he took over the 11 fire stations. And I want to say that he's done a great job of that. He's limited in what he can do with his personnel and the funding that he has. I want to commend our folks at the fire department level. Our folks do all the grass cutting, all the landscaping, painting, pressure washing, the daily maintenance. They keep those fire stations up immaculately. I dare say you would go to a fire station anywhere around and find it as well kept as ours, and it's due to our folks and Mr. Yates. I would say that we need additional money. What we've tried to do over the past several years is look at projects as we need those projects to occur and kind of map those out for 5-10 year process. But when we don't have funding for those and it goes 2 or 3 years, then those projects back up. And it's simple things like a fire station that's been in existence for 27 years, it needs some updating in the kitchen, or it needs showers are leaking or whatever, concrete's busted. And so those things, and I'm not gonna go over every one of those, but you can see those. Basically what I took were the things that we asked for last year and the year before that have not been completed, and we just put those on the list for this year. And so we made great strides in a lot of things that we have done. Mr. Yates has got us on track, and Mr. Aldaka, Colin Connor with pine straw. I know that's just kind of a big thing. It was a big controversy. We use a lot of pine straw because we keep the fire station flower beds looking nice. And so Mr. Colin Connor was able to save us money on that. Mr. Aldaka with all of our service contracts and pest control and so on and so forth. So that system with Mr. Yates is working. But this is just additional money that we need to take care of some special projects at fire stations. On the third page, there is capital and one-time requests. Just a few weeks ago, we were approached by Jefferson County EMA about some gaps in our siren emergency warning areas. I know some cities are, they don't like to use early warning sirens and stuff, and everybody's got an app and those type things. My position on that is we have a lot of outdoor spaces and we have a lot of parks, and we think that it's important for us to keep those early warning devices active, and Jefferson County does that. And they have somehow took control of some of the sirens in Shelby County, and they're moving some of those sirens into our city. And so they asked for $24,000 to help with those projects. They want to put a early warning device at Veterans Park, which we do not have now. And so we think that that's an appropriate project. The next things below the fire siren upgrade is basically dealing with accreditation, one-time things. This December, as I mentioned, December 3rd through the 6th, we do our strategic planning, and the technical assistance program from Center for Public Safety Excellence comes in and helps us with that. And then there are additional things that we're doing. So this coming year in '25, we'll work through our accreditation process again. And then in '26, we'll go back in front of the commission for reaccreditation, which will be our second time. And we're looking forward to that. And I just want to add about the fire department. We're an ISO Class 1. We were the first department and only one of 3 departments in the state that is accredited. And out of the United States, out of 40,000 fire departments across the nation, we're one of 117 that hold both certifications. And those are very important to us. I don't say that to boast or brag. I just say that to show the level of commitment that our members have to public safety. And that also should reflect on you to show the level of commitment that you have for public safety as well. So we appreciate that. And the last category I'll talk real quickly about is personnel. When I came to work for the fire department in 1997, we were at 2.4 firefighters per 1,000, and we operated out of 8 fire stations. Our call volume was around 4,800 calls for the year, close to 5,000. Fast forward to today, we'll answer about 15,000 calls this year. Our department is doing more than ever before. Just 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we started full EMS transport. One day we had a private ambulance. The next day they called and said they weren't going to transport, and we started transporting, and we never missed a beat. And so we're very proud of our department and what they're doing and the members. We're very proud of the support from the council and the mayor's office for allowing us to do that. I think it's the right thing for us to do. If I'm sick or injured, I want the Hoover Fire Department to take care of me, and they do a great job with that. So at the time, in 1997, we had 2 engine companies that had 4 people on it. And we eventually got to where we had 3 engines with 4 members on it every day. And so now we operate 46 people on duty every day, minimum staffing, and we have no 4-person engine companies anywhere in the city. All of our apparatus, 3-person. We had 3 rescue trucks in service, and what we did is we took the 2 4-person engines, removed those people, and put them on a rescue truck to create the 4th rescue unit. And so we're averaging about 17 transports per day. That's 15 to 17 transports per day. I didn't look at the stats before I came this morning, but that's a very close number to how many people we transport a day. Our hospitals are, not all of our hospitals, but some of our hospitals are a good travel distance away, and so we have some return times that take a little bit longer than we wanted it to do. So we think it's appropriate that we request 7 people, 7 firefighters, to put a rescue truck in service at Fire Station 3 in River Chase. Now, I say that tongue-in-cheek because we'll do some studying before, if we get the people, we'll do some studying before we do that. But if the rescue units stayed in their current location, we think that that's the right location. As we went through our accreditation process, they indicated that additional personnel would be needed for EMS transporting. Also, We need an additional inspector in our fire inspection office. In the past, we've had at least 4 members, fire marshal and 3 inspectors in that position, and we're doing more today than ever before. To kind of give you an idea of what these inspectors do, there's 3 of them, including the fire marshal. They're on call for 1 week at a time. They can't go anywhere, they can't do anything because they're on call. And so every 3rd week, they get a week off. And so not only that, but just the number of inspections that they have to do and the number of things that I want them to do in the community is overwhelming. That person would also help us with maintaining our fire dues and taking care of some of that stuff that's overwhelming to us as well. And also, we're asking for a civilian position to assist Tori in the office with different administrative functions. Just this past year, we were able to restructure the fire department and go back to 2 battalion chiefs on duty. In order to do that without additional personnel, we had to move 2 senior level battalion chiefs out of the office to the field. And so we don't have those senior level administrative positions to take care of some of the stuff that we're doing. And so we're asking for a person to assist Tori so Tori could move into more of an analytical analysis role to be able to help us with accreditation and fire dues and all these other administrative functions that we're having difficulties completing. And so those are that's the request for 9 personnel. I'd like to compare, I hate to compare, but I'd like to compare our department to a couple other departments around us. The Bessemer Fire Department. Bessemer has a population of 25,000. They have 116 firefighter positions. That's a per capita of over 4 firefighters per 1,000. City of Birmingham. I know the city of Birmingham is super busy, but they have more positions now than they had when I worked there, and the population is 70,000 people less. The Pelham Fire Department, Alabaster Fire Department. Pelham Fire Department is 25,000, they have 80 firefighters. That's 2.7 firefighters per 1,000. Note that they don't transport patients, we transport. And so January 1st, Alabaster and Pelham are both gonna start transporting. The Shelby County's bought transport units for them, and they're gonna start transporting. Homewood, 25,000 people, they've got right at 80 firefighters. Vestavia, they do full transports. They have 109 firefighters with a population of 38,000. That's over 3.2 firefighters per 1,000. And so, kind of give you a perspective of where we are. Tuscaloosa Fire Department, they have close to 250 members, and their population's about 110,000. And we're at 90, 92, 150 during the day. So kind of gives you a comparison of where we are. We're at 176 members. That's our department. And so I would encourage you to consider this. We know that the fire department is a life raft on the ship, and we don't want to survive and the ship go down. We get it. We know that there's going to be tons of requests, but we're just asking you to consider this, and we appreciate you giving us the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir. I've got a couple of comments that go in line with what you brought up there at the end, and then also a question. Working at a hospital, I can tell you that I see Rescue 5 probably every other day. My office is right by the emergency room where the ambulances pull into the ambulatory entrance. I see that truck every day. I see our trucks and Birmingham's trucks all the time. You may get, being a state children's hospital, you get people from all over. You see trucks, but I see those trucks all the time. So you are transporting a lot. And I'm just adding that to what you're saying because I'm down there and I see it every day. And I live 12 miles from work. I drive that every day. So like you talked about the travel time, I mean, we're 12, 15, 18 miles away from that hospital, and then the one next door, the UAB as well. So I see you a lot, and I know that you're transporting a ton. The other comment is I graduated from high school in 1995. That's been 30 years ago, and you've got a truck on here that's 30 years old. damned impressive that you've kept that truck in service that long. But like you said, it's 10 years, so we're a little bit behind there, and I'm a complete advocate of taking that transport money because I see the work you're doing every day and using it to fund these things. I think that's a good, making that a special projects fund for that, putting that in your, and using that as that revenue stream for your department. I think that is a wonderful thing. And then the question is,
Can I comment on that?
yeah, sure, absolutely.
So the 95 model truck, we keep a apparatus in the cage that's unstocked, and so that truck goes away. It's still it could be pushed into service. I don't want to mislead you there. We just take the oldest truck that we have, and Mr. Moore takes that truck and surpluses it. So, we just take the oldest truck and move it out. So that's what you're replacing. If we purchase this engine this year, the engine that we will purchase this year will go to engine 6 in Deer Valley.
It's still impressive that you got a 95 model truck ready to go. That's really impressive. Okay, on the question, and in your personnel, which I know you've asked for these positions multiple times, there's a gray box or a highlight around the fire inspector and the administrative services specialist. Is there a reason why that's got a gray box around it, but the 7 firefighters does not?
I don't know, but I think it's due to the fact that the accreditation report requested that.
No, the ones that are shaded were turned in to HR and are on HR's list as well.
Okay, so those are in HR's list. The 7 firefighters are specifically on the fire department's list. Okay, and that's just me looking at the spreadsheet and seeing the box. That's
I had the same
that's
question.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for the chief?
Chief, when it comes to us doing our own transports, how much money does that raise last year?
We'll collect somewhere around 2.2 to 2.3 million this year.
All right, thanks.
We collect, and this is off the cuff. EMS guys tell us that we collect 90% of what is collectible. So if you have insurance and it's collectible, we collect it. But our overall collection rate is about 62%. Used to be a little bit higher than that, but once we started transporting all patients, that number went down.
I just want to say on that, that's like revenues, like expenses. So with the transport fees, if you are receptive and we were able to do that, they'll build that fund because we're buying equipment that takes 18 months to 36 months for delivery. So it's kind of a way that you're pulling it out of the general fund revenues, but you're specifying long-term because it's just such a delivery time on whatever apparatus. Now, trucks and Tahoes would be different, but that's something to think about, that it kind of would help clear that up as to it's taken care of.
I want to chime in a little bit on that, like segregating that out. The transport fees, just to be clear, are still going into the general fund right now, along with the expenditure, the tax piece that we have to pay for collecting the money. What we're suggesting is putting it into a different organization within the general fund that will allow the balance to roll over. So it would operate similarly to library, similarly to the budget stabilization fund, where you have that balance that rolls forward if it's not used. So it would still end up being, the net amount would still end up being part of fund balance. It would just be a committed or restricted piece of that, if that makes sense.
Quick question, Chief Bentley. For the 15 to 17 transports per day that you're averaging, I assume there are also an additional number of responses by the rescue unit that don't result in transports or potential revenue dollars. Do you happen to know like how many of those we average a day?
I can find that for you. I know that when a rescue unit and an engine are dispatched, or a suppression unit are dispatched together, I know that about 55 to 60% of the time the patients are transported.
Okay.
So I don't know the number. We answer about 40 to 45 calls per day. That's what we respond to. So you could kind of back that number out from the number of transports. Some rescue units are busier than others, but I can get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we move to finance? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Talking about the finance budget for the upcoming year, on your summary sheet, you'll notice that it looks like we're asking for a lot of extra money over and above what is normally spent. And one of the things I want to say about that is that the original budget for 2024 does not track with what the prior year real expenditures for the department were. So something happened when I don't know what it was, but something happened when the budget was approved where a lot of known expenditures and committed expenditures that the department has had did not get included or budgeted for. So just to put it in perspective, the actual amount of expenditures for the finance department in 2023 were $2.2 million, almost $2.3 million. So that beginning budget or original budget of $880 doesn't really represent true needs or costs of the department. Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is we're asking for a normal amount of expenditures that we have trended to have. Now, having said that, going through the additional incremental amounts, as we're looking at accounting services and consulting services, these additional amounts for the accounting services, that line item extra $210,000 includes a company that we pay to do some auditing for revenue auditing for us and collections and filing liens on people that don't pay. And so that was one of the items that did not get accounted for in the original budget. And also the fact that we had to have a single audit because we have reached the threshold of grant funds that requires that. So additional work for our auditor, it's an additional engagement that needed to be done for that, to have that single audit. The consulting services did also include this would not have been budgeted for, I don't think, in the original budget, but the two seasoned folks that we brought back in, Robert Yeager and Melissa Woods, to help us that the council approved. But that also includes different actuarial studies that we have to have. Also, the big piece of this is that we have an investment advisor, Raymond James, that that we pay to help us manage our investments, as the investment committee knows, and that is a function of the amount of dollars that you have invested. And so it's one of those variable things. We had a lot more money invested, and so the cost that we had to pay to have those funds managed for us was just a lot bigger. So these are real things that we've committed to and say that we want to do, or have said that we want to do. For the tax assessments, there's some items on here that are variable. They vary in relation to either revenues that are coming in. So with tax assessments, that has to do with the portion that we have to pay back to the county related to the tax assessments. So as the tax assessments and the dollars that come in related to those tax assessments increase, then we're going to have to pay a bigger amount of a fee back to the county. One of the big things that was not budgeted, because it was probably unknown at the time we were doing the budget, was this prior year tax refund. So we had one taxpayer who overpaid money for several years to us, and they are in the process. They have engaged an auditor to help them go back, and they're working through at the state level and then the city level of amounts that need to be remitted back to them. And so this is our estimate of what we would need to pay back to that taxpayer as a result of their overpayment of taxes to us from prior years. The credit card service fees and the bank fees, those are variable. Again, they vary in proportion to the balances that we have and the transactions that we have. As we get down to talk about registrations and travel and membership and subscriptions, one of the things that we're trying to do is to bring on new staff in the finance department. And so we obviously want to train that staff. A big piece of that has to do with training them on Munis. And so there are incremental amounts for those hopefully approved new employees to get trained And of course, we want to be committed to continuing to train our existing employees that we have too. The only really new, what I would call a new item, would be a request for software, $20,000 request to implement something called Debt Book. We implemented a new lease standard that requires you to keep up with subscription-based IT arrangements and record them, and it is a bugaboo. I think Mindy Wyatt spent 2 or 3 whole days trying to gather all of the subscription-based IT arrangements that we had for the auditors. But this is a system that once you implement it, it can help you with your reporting and hopefully cut down not just on the administrative costs, but the cost that your auditor have to do in order to be able to prepare the disclosure and do the entries for that. So that's it for the operating. In the end, the operating request of 2.265, I believe, is in line with what the department has actually spent in prior years. Moving on to are there questions about that, or can I move on to the personnel requests?
A quick question about the debt book. Do we have an
Yes.
estimate of what that $20,000 expenditure will save us?
No. A lot of time. Like, if we could add up the cost of time that Mindy and I spent on, I would say it would be a cost benefit. Like, if we included the internal cost, it is, do you remember how many we ended up with? Yeah. It's like in the hundreds, isn't it?
It's over 100, and on top of that, there was not only Mindy's time, but there was my staff,
Yep.
myself, my administrative assistant as well.
Yeah.
So it's avoided,
Multiple people involved in that process.
avoided personnel time, not so much savings on the subscription fees
Right.
themselves. Okay.
Exactly. It's a cost, a cost avoidance move, and it helps us to be better organized. Okay, moving on to the personnel requests, asking for one upgrade. We have a employee who has been working kind of out of class as a payroll specialist, and has been due a upgrade from accounting specialist to payroll specialist, which is a 2-grade jump. So we like to request that. And then after, thank you very much for approving the payroll manager position last night. The remaining 4 position asks are for a senior financial analyst and a financial analyst. These will be people who are hopefully CPAs that will be oriented towards the gathering and reporting of lots of information to be able to beef up our ability to provide not just, I think as is, we can provide routine reports, but to have better reports and maybe more report availability. Also, those individuals would kind of see over making sure that the transactions that got recorded were hitting the right accounts. So some supervision and accountability for that. An accountant position, that's a grade 10 position that we're asking for. And then a revenue auditor. We believe the revenue auditor will be able to bring in more than enough revenue to pay for themselves. But it has been a long time since our revenue department has been able to put people out on the street to kind of, I guess enforce is maybe not a happy word, but to meet out the requirements of the city and to be licensed as they're supposed to be, make sure they're collecting taxes for us.
So,
Hang on. Go ahead. I got a question after you. Go ahead.
so to piggyback on top of that,
Yes.
we're gonna have somebody knocking on doors?
Yes. Well, visiting places to make sure that they have a business license and make sure they're set up. At present, we have one revenue auditor now, but because of the staffing in the revenue department, she's been pulled into doing back office stuff. And so by hiring another revenue auditor, we can get both of them inside, have a dual role of being both an auditor, helping people comply with our laws, because sometimes that can be the biggest barrier is people don't understand or don't know. Small business owners have a big task of trying to figure out how to do all the right things. So we can definitely make it easy by having easier. I do think it's a customer service facing position.
As a small business owner, the capitalist in me loathes the idea of someone knocking on my door. But if we can make sure it's a customer service thing,
This would be where you're in business and you're appropriately paying and doing everything right, and the guy next door, is not. So we go visit him
Right.
in a very tactful and positive way to help them understand how to be a great corporate citizen.
yeah, with the emphasis on being positive.
Well, I do think, and Ken Davidson is the director of our revenue division, and he is very oriented towards customer service and tactfulness. And Virginia Foster is the revenue auditor that he is currently in the position. That's definitely the tone that is used. Help me help you.
Yeah, because I can see it getting out in the public pretty quickly that they'll knock on your door to make sure you pay for your business license, but if your trash is not picked up, then good luck. So that's just me,
Right.
so, but I get that, thank you.
Get it?
Several years ago, last term, we did a number of studies on staffing and salary. And if I remember correctly, the study said that in terms of our finance positions, accounting and revenue, everything, we were 9 people short. This right here goes a long way to getting back up to and filling those positions, because you're adding a total of 7, is that correctly? Plus the one you did last night. So these,
Six, right?
Six.
Yep.
do you anticipate after you said you talked about building your team, you talked
Right.
about building teams in general through adding positions. Do you anticipate coming back with those other 3, or are you going to look at this for an amount of time and see where you are and determine whether you need the other 3 that were recommended, I think, in 18?
I want to be really conservative. So what I'd like to do is try to get this team assembled and then see where we stand. We would also have to figure out like where we're going to put them, if we were to add even more people. But my intention would be to try to fill these positions and see what we can do with that and then go from there.
Okay. Any other questions about these? And these are gray for those that are watching online, so that'll also be in the HR report that we discussed earlier when asking that question last time. Any other questions for finance? All right.
Thank you for the
Mr. Grimes,
time.
you're up. Thank
Sorry
you.
for going over.
Oh, you're fine.
We're so close on time. All right, so in the administrator's office, there's a few changes and requests that I would make. And so one of these is in the 10 months of being here and trying to observe and guide, I'm looking for gaps and changes that will create some things. And overall, I don't envision a lot of requests needed to change in operational how we're doing things, but I do see some things that will help significantly improve from the leadership team down as to how to do that. So let me talk first. One, I'm calling it consulting fees, but basically this would be requesting that we hire a firm that would help us with not only our state and coordinating our needs, our defensive mechanisms when necessary, and ultimately even things that we have great concerns, and then also working with our delegation on appropriations. You had 2 examples of appropriations last night, and we're greatly appreciative of all of those. But what does happen a lot of times here is that someone may appropriate something for $10,000 as an example, but the project cost you $100,000. So in that sense, I want to kind of get it to where we prioritize what it is that we're seeking to accomplish, where we could use those funds and or any other agency funds such as state tourism or such, as we've worked with, agencies like the SEC and stuff. So this would do a lot of those things and represent us predominantly at the state level. But I would love the opportunity to go find a firm that could help us with resources to do things that we just don't have time to do, and to kind of coordinate that effort. So I'm trying to avoid the word lobbyist, but it would basically be a registered lobbying firm that would represent us. And I can talk more with you specifically about the strategy of that. For currently, I think we have the job position finally posted for the marketing coordinator. This will handle some of the tourism of the past, as well as internally begin to guide things on a daily basis from the website to more social media outlay of information, et cetera. So that is in the current budget where we took that position, if you remember back, and we created the marketing. We just finally got it posted. So some of the costs are related to adding that position as well for training. And then I've brought the strategic analyst up from the COO, and we moved her up into the administrative department as well. And so I'm making a recommendation there that we do in a position upgrade back to the chief information officer that used to exist, I believe, when Ms. Lopez was here. She was CFO and information officer, if you remember that title. I don't think it existed since she has been gone. I think it kind of went away as a title. But I envision broadening that scope where this person becomes part of the true leadership team citywide and helping oversight and guidance, just like you've seen with the budget process. I've been very impressed with some of the abilities to help us with the trash issues, if you remember some of those reports and system that we created, as well as how we're working with our sewer system, our wastewater, and what we're doing in that. So those are just a couple of examples beyond what you've heard Ms. Cornett talk about. That individual doesn't like being called a utility player, but that's a good thing. They can play any position, and I think they will do well if you can improve that and help me with my leadership team as we reach out from the top. Predominantly, there's no capital and no specific things from this office. So if you have any questions,
Any questions for Mr. Grimes?
I do want to point out on the tourism, I didn't put tourism marketing money because we're keeping that under the mayor's office now. I think that money is the same as what we had last year. So when we strategically target what we want to promote, tourism related, different than marketing, we'll pull those funds from that code that's still in the mayor's office. So I think that may have stepped out. So you'll hear that Wednesday.
Any other questions?
On, I guess, the tourism, what's the budget that y'all have for that so far?
I think it's a little bit under 150,000 for the year.
As for this upgrade to CIO, is this something that you're putting out? Well, hang on, take it back. What does a CIO do? I don't know.
Well, I think right now you have a lot of information. So let's just take it from that. In many cases, people define it to say IT. I see CIO as being information. You are handling information. The budget process has been more informational. So I will give credit to the fact that this is an example, much like we took the trash issues back with the Amways when we first did the first penalization. So when we penalized them and started that process. So creating strategic thinking and having a process that begins to take information and come out with a result that we're happy with, not everybody can do that. I struggle with even how to bring that to closure, and I'm open to admit closing it. But what I have found in this particular individual as an upgrade is to try to take that into, it's a full package. So concept is there, team's working, but then we come out with a finished product, much like you see here. And this is just one example, and they're every day. And I think the thing in the finance is that ability to understand. It also has the institutional knowledge that we're blessed with if you see that and see fit for the position, because that is something we do not have. And I say we being myself, Ms. Cornett, and others. Now, thankfully, Mr. Aldaka has given tremendous institutional knowledge in that leadership team of what we're starting with, as well as Greg and the economic development team. So I kind of look at, when we give you updates, you see who's around the table. That's part of what I describe as the leadership team. So you can kind of see the flow coming out. I think GIS is an area you're going to hear more about. We definitely want to grow and strengthen and really rev up our GIS input. I think that is an area that we hope to, over the next 3 years, get to a point that it's a strong machine. That would be under that guidance from a standpoint of, much like I mentioned, probably the IT department under that umbrella, as well as the marketing side. where the marketing position will probably fall because it's information going out to the citizens. And I think we can do a much better job by having a daily focus with that individual and guidance upline of what information's out there for the citizens and making it user-friendly. I mean, right now, I would love to have people not having to seek information. We keep talking the word transparency, but there's no doubt the result will end in more transparency. So I see that with more guidance of the information. It's kind of a broad example, but it's easier if I draw it out.
My only concern is that it's a pretty hefty pay raise, and, you know, I'm all for people prospering and doing better, but I know a couple of years ago when we were told, not by you, but by your predecessor, that certain people should get raises, and it kind of backfired.
Well, think of what you paid those folks and where we're at today and where we're moving. So we're trying to move forward and not talk about the past as much as we can. And I understand that philosophy, and that's part of where we are with some of the other positions that we have inherited. And so we're trying to repair to create the most efficient organization. And I don't want to bring smoke and mirrors. I'm trying to give you the ability to show you there are examples to show what you have with the current leadership team and how we're growing that. And I've told many of you, I'm trying to identify that for our city, known resources. That means what individuals have what strengths and get them in the right position on the bus, because the bus is moving every day and we got to be in the right position, make sure we're headed the right direction. So it would be hugely helpful to create this part of the structure, and then in the future, if we find more efficiencies, I fully anticipate bringing you recommendations to streamline things, much like you just asked, because grants is an area that we absolutely have that, and that very well may fall under a finance position or the CIO, because it's information, and it's something that's natural to that individual to keep organized.
Okay, we'll discuss further. I appreciate it very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
A 3-grade jump sounds like a big leap. Is that typical?
I think that in this case, I am working within the recommendations that fit with HR and our organizational structure to create a position that is on the core leadership team. And I think that I'm trying to take an individual without throwing that specific too much. I appreciate all of our department heads and division directors and staff. I mean, you got a great group of people who are doing a great job, but this is one that, you know, I ask that we work through what is appropriate, and to put it properly in the org chart and in our payroll structure, we're trying to find this based on what HR sees and is recommended to me.
So this is a new department head, I guess?
It would be I guess it would be a department head, yes, in the sense of creating the position as a leadership team. I may not be answering that appropriately.
So C level,
Do what?
C level, you know.
Yes.
Mean high tide, or? I come from the coast. Sea level means something different to me.
The letter C level, like executive.
C-suite kind, yes. And basically, you have someone that is beginning to function and is functioning in that capacity for me today and has been for months, and I'm trying to find the way to take it citywide and be more appropriate. And I think that's part of it. The other side for me, I am trying to prepare for succession planning across the board, and I'm trying to position where you all are prepared that no matter what year and date and time in the future, you have appropriate leadership where you'll never be left like you were, for whatever that looks like with different skill sets.
Any other questions before we shift gears? Okay, thank you. One question before we move to parks. Housekeeping wise, on the capital items for parks, there are gray shaded boxes and blue shaded boxes. Before we get them up here, can we define what the difference in between a gray shaded box and a blue shaded box is? Okay, tier 2 is gray. Okay. Okay, good, all right. Just wanted to get that out there before we got up there so we didn't stop. Able to define it. Okay. Okay, cool.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present our request to you. To give you an overview, our department consists of a variety of accounts. So we've got this many to go through. They'll include our Park and Rec Administration, Aldridge Gardens, Beautification Board, Christmas decorating, events, Hoover Randall Home and Gardens, and the Senior Center. So let's get ready for all that. I'll just let you know our staff's worked really hard for many months to compile these budget requests, and I'm thankful for their efforts. Many of my managers are here with me today. In addition, last week, I think everybody was excited to announce the new agreement with the SEC baseball tournament, and we've really been able to accomplish a lot in the past couple of years due to your support and the staff that's energized to carry out many programs and initiatives in education to serve our residents and visitors. During the budget process, so you all are aware, we have worked hard establishing a process. So as part of that process, we work with the sports association boards and get their requests since they are at the sports parks all the time. And then we also work with our park board members to determine all of the capital projects and how to put those in priority. And I'm happy to have Jeremy Weiss, one of our members, here with us. He's part of that process. So I think you're aware, but just so it's all listed out, our department consists of more than 30 parks, Aldridge Gardens, the Randall House, the Rec Center, and the Senior Center. And as you know, lots of those facilities are aging, and we have challenges in maintaining those and providing clean, safe, and updated spaces for our residents and visitors to give the best possible experience. So we truly appreciate the funding that we've received this past year, but as you will see as we go through this presentation, there's still much work to be done. So as you have your forms and spreadsheets here, we'll start with the administrative area. So our operating budget consists of both 112 accounts and 114 accounts, which are activity fee accounts where our athletics, archery, aquatics, fitness, and therapeutics programming comes out of those accounts. So combined, that gives you the 633, 122, which is level. We're not asking for any more from that. As you'll see, a $17,000 transfer, that's just from Aldridge Gardens over to administration, because now we have that staff handling summer camps and field trips. So we just to get that where it needs to go, that's just a transfer. If you want to know the breakdown on the 112 and 114 accounts, under 112 we have $300,370, and under 114 with all that programming it's $349,752. So all that's level, not asking for any more to provide amazing programs for our residents. Under our personnel request, honestly, we have had the biggest challenge with our aquatics area. Just so you're aware, this past 12 months, we've got 7 part-time lifeguard positions, and we've gone through 17 staff members. As you can imagine, we have 1 full-time supervisor and 1 assistant that they have to pick up the slack when we're out those people. At one time, a couple of months ago, 4 of those staff members resigned in the same week. So when you have the rec center open from 5 to 9 every day, different hours on the weekends, that's a big burden on our full-time staff. So our recommendation, as we've thought about this for over 2 years, how we could, solve this challenge, is to take 2 of those part-time positions and make them into 1 full-time position, which shows, I think that's your 3rd line item, like a $6,000 difference to the city. And then take what the title is for the lifeguards, which we have a few other part-time members. Our rec assistants at a grade 2 is to take them to a grade 3. And you will see that's about a $19,000 difference overall for that. There is an administrative services supervisor listed on here, upgrade, which we are not seeking at this point in time, so you can disregard that. But one thing I am very passionate about is an administration and communications coordinator. This was part of what came out of the Parks and Public Spaces Plan to get our information on all we offer out to the public. We are constantly engaging each and every day with the public. Today, we'll have a park day out at Georgetown Park. Well, I've got staff that are coordinating that and that are making all the things happen, but I don't have staff that are skilled in advertising, promoting, getting the word out. I call it more community engagement. And if we're the ones, one of the departments that are engaging with the public on a daily basis, we really need someone with that expertise. So that is our final personnel request. I will let Mr. Moore speak more to the fleet request. This was really based on his recommendation, a new passenger bus that is used for our therapeutics program. They do field trips and go out and serve the community each and every day. And this is a 2006 model that they are transporting in, and it frankly just does not serve our needs at this point in time. So now on to the fun part, all the capital request, which is a large number, I do realize, but as Mr. Posey asked, we realize it's a lot of requests, but I think the conversation over the past couple of years, as mentioned, are the aging facilities, the deferred maintenance, just really trying to get all of those facilities that I mentioned before upgraded and where we want them to be for not only our residents, but our visitors, as we have many people coming into town for a variety of activities, but lots of tournaments as well. So as part of your binder that shows our original request, it may be easier at some point in time when y'all are at home at night just to view this spreadsheet. And so then it does show tier 1 and then how we just ranked them tier 2 and tier 3. So likely if it doesn't get approved this year, it would just bump up to make it a tier 1 for next year. I hope that's helpful. And then there are also some pictures of some of the facilities in the packet as well. And at any time, if you want to go out and see any of the facilities, we will be happy to take you out and visit those. So some of these requests are also, they're not just park and rec staff members, but also we work hand in hand with park maintenance at the ballparks and stuff. So some of these are their requests as well. I won't go through absolutely every one of them because a lot of them are maintenance, painting buildings. Some of these, as Mindy had mentioned, are building services requests, which I think will be addressed with them later on, like the roofs. At the rec center on the 3rd floor, we really need that painting. If you ever go and walk or anything, literally there are things that are chipping and shredding off the ceilings and the walls. Not a good look. So we really would like that to happen. Some furnishings in the building. Something that's requested a lot at the sports parks are updating restrooms. I'm not sure when those were built or the last time they were renovated, but it's been a while. So that's often a request for that $85,000 line item. As we move over to that second page, you'll see a huge item at Shades Mountain Park for the main power feed replacement. And $300,000 of this request is in this current year. What we found out was we need an additional $150,000 to complete that project. And it's not that it's a total safety issue, but at any point in time, the power could go out and we have no idea how long it would take to restore that. And it is my understanding that this is just something that's been a large capital request for a long time and has just been deferred over the years. When you see the all parks listed, we really would like to get to the point where we just have some consistent money to do some stuff new in the parks and just have it on the books. Various trail and drainage improvements, asphalt. Asphalt and bridges are going to be a theme in the capital this year. We need bridge replacement throughout parks, and bridges are not inexpensive, unfortunately. So there's several bridge projects requested, and then I think a small asphalt truck, piece of equipment's being requested. I'm a big proponent of that, because if we get that, then we can do some of this stuff with our staff and still upgrade our facilities. Hoover East, those are just more maintenance items, various maintenance items. Some of our playgrounds are aging and need to be replaced as well. A suggestion at Howard Lake, at River Chase Sports Park. There's lots of need for improvement at River Chase Sports Park. And so a lot of these items reflect that, with backstops and sidewalks and playgrounds as well. Tennis court resurfacing at Sertoma Park, some chain link backstops, and then various items at Veterans Park, replacing the bridge that connects from the high school that people use when we park large events at the high school and walk down. That bridge needs to be replaced, the pier at the lake. And then again, you can see all parks with, another thing we're trying to do is add arts to the parks, Mr. Posey. So we have one project we're working on now, but we would eventually like to expand that to many of our parks as well. Signage, there's money right now we're working on just entry signs. There's not entry signs at many of our parks, but then once you get in a park, then where do you go, especially if you're on a trail? So signage for that. Security cameras, this comes up a lot in our conversations about more security presence through the cameras at various parks. Some batting cages, and then another item that's come up through our park board meetings, various people within the community will come and present different ideas for different projects, and lots of times we're not sure if that's what the city needs or not. And so they would like to have a little money in the budget to do feasibility studies as those opportunities are brought to us. Also, under Trace Crossing Soccer, that new restroom for $350,000, that's a very highly trafficked area for youth activities right at Trace Crossings Elementary School, and there's no restrooms there. So that is something that's been talked about a lot, and I know we would like that to happen as well. So I think that I rushed through it, but there's a lot to cover. So if you don't have any questions on administration, we can move on to the next.
I just wanted to say on that long list, the Hoover Met Complex will be in the SFM presentation. Shannon couldn't be here today, so that'll be Wednesday. So those items around the Met Complex will be there. And some of these also will be working with the schools on some of theirs, such as the last bathroom that she mentioned, school property. But if we can work a joint venture to have bathrooms and lights at certain places, that's part of some of these, so we can have use of those facilities.
Quick question. This may be more of a financial question, but you might know the answer. The $745,000 that's requested to replace the rec center roof in the 3 stages, that is not listed under the capital and one-time request, but it sounds like something that might be eligible for capital. Have we looked at whether that might actually be a capital expenditure?
I think that's under a building services request.
Okay.
It is a capital item.
Okay.
I think we just use that terminology to differentiate buildings versus other types of capital,
But it's still a capital expenditure. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
On the lighting, do we know if some of those are part of the ongoing project with Alabama Power? Or would some of these be like a phase 2 with Alabama Power?
We have phase 2, but it's really on the back burner right now.
Okay,
kind of catch up with our capital projects. Because we got a lot of projects that we need to wrap up first before we even start basically.
okay, all right, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. The next area is Aldridge Gardens. That is, we have no increases or no requests there. That's just a level request. The same for a beautification board. Those ladies do a great job for us, and they have no increases. Christmas decorating. This is, it can be a little confusing just because we have different scenarios. So we have a wonderful tree that we've had outside City Hall for a very long time. Very long time means needs to be replaced. Actually, probably needs to be replaced right now, but we're told that we can use it one more year. The thought was to take that and put it at Veterans Park because there's been lots of conversation about having a park on the east side as well. So with that, these figures encompass all this. So on the first line for $22,800, that is the minimum we need this year for the contractor to install all the decorations. As with everything else, things are increasing. So at the very minimum, we need that first line item. Then as we go through, icicle lights and lighted trees at the Police Training Center for $25,000. And then again, if we decide that the tree will go at Veterans Park, we need the decorations and the contractor to install that at $30,000. And then on that second page, that's actually the cost of the trees. So replace the decorations and icicle lights at City Hall are $90,000. Replacing the tree at City Hall is $70,000. And then purchasing a new tree for Veterans Park is $100,000. All right, and then under events, there are a couple of requests for increases here, primarily, as mentioned, that new agreement with the Southeastern Conference. 2 years ago, we started working directly with them in managing the tournament, which has brought on additional operating cost on the city side. So the increase of the $228,349 is primarily SEC baseball tournament expenses. And then there's a small request for $4,100 for Miss Hoover as well. Okay, and then with the Randall House, there's no increase there of the $106,300 for that area, and none for the Senior Center. It stays level at $122,000.
Any questions on Parks and Rec? All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And next, before we take a break, is HR.
Good morning. So the first part that we have is all of the budget requests. The existing position upgrades, as well as all new position requests, which totals a little over $3 million. So obviously, in the spirit of transparency, what you have is every single thing that was requested citywide, right? Now, through some of the conversations and through the process, a lot of times in meeting with the various departments, what happens is some of these positions have already been nixed by the departments themselves, okay? Now, I also wanted to mention a slight error that was made earlier. I know the question was asked about why one of Chief Bentley's position was shaded. I want to make the point that it actually was submitted to HR. So you'll see it on this list. That was an error, okay? So as far as our department, we are asking for a small increase, and I'll explain why, the total being $12,000, okay? The first one is due to the LinkedIn bill that we have. We use the LinkedIn services for assisting with job postings, as well as advertising all of the city's recruiting needs that we have. Initially, we were able to talk to LinkedIn, and because we were a governmental entity, we were able to get it at a really good trial rate. In fact, it was about $6,000. Again, that wasn't truly the cost. It was just something that they offered to us that we were able to negotiate to allow them the opportunity to prove to us that it was a valuable, useful tool. Now, with that being said, the trial period is now up, and so the total amount increase is $10,000 more. The remaining amount, because the total is about $16,000, we were able to use that with our own budget of about $6,000. So again, we're asking for that 10 to be able to take care of that bill, okay? The second part is we have new HR team members within our department. And in an effort to keep them with their current certifications and or additional trainings, we're requesting additional $2,000 for the total of 12. Is it?
Okay, any questions for HR? All right. We are,
So you want to set it for 10 minutes?
yeah, let's do a 10-minute break and then we'll be back.